Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with a review of Legendary Ranger Key Pack Wave 2, or packs rather, I guess it is. So if you couldn't tell by what I just said, this is the second wave of American Ranger keys to be released. I'm sorry I can't get them all in this camera frame. It takes a lot of space to stretch them all out like this, but I did the best that I could, so sorry about that. But obviously, you're going to be seeing them all anyway. So this wave includes MMPR, Zeo, Turbo, Space, Time Force, Ninja Storm, and SPD. So very, very cool. So we will be taking a look at the Ranger keys themselves, what sounds they do, and some brief comparisons to some Japanese versions. So I guess we'll just go ahead and start with MMPR. So here we go. We'll start here with Mmpr Red, which we have already gotten with the Mmpr itself, so this is kind of a rehash. But still, the details on him aren't terrible. Its head's a little bit squished like they always are, but really nothing that bad. If you watched my reviews before, you know that I actually really do like the American Ranger keys. I don't think there's that much of a difference between them and the Japanese in terms of detail. Here he is next to the Japanese version. As you can see, personally, with the exception of a few minor things which I'll mention later, they're pretty much just the same, just shrunk down, and then, you know, having the spring-loaded gimmick, so that's really not that big of a deal. Other than that, they look the same. I asked in my last review if you really needed to see comparison in key mode for every single one, and most of you said no. So I'm just going to show a comparison in key mode for this very first one, so you get the idea, and then for the rest, I'm not going to bother wasting your time. But as you can see, for key mode for this, you just lift his arms up, and then, you know, flip it up just like the others. Here's the American key, and here's the Japanese one looks like. Obviously, there's a difference in size, the way the plastic is, and then here the symbol's kind of done in this little code here for the app, and this is not. But you get the general idea of how these are all going to look in key mode versus regular mode. But yeah, most people said that it was kind of a waste just to show every single one in comparison. So yeah, this is key mode, and so for every single set, they all make the same noise. So I'm only going to be showing the first one with the noise, and then just know that they all make the same one. I might do one more for MMPR just to prove it. But so let's go ahead and put the MMPR key in the Legendary Mmpr rather.
Mighty Morphin.
And then when you turn it again, you get the communicator sound, and then there's no real sounds additional if you push the button. So that's what you get for that. So let's pull it out. For whatever reason, this one's really tight squeeze. I'm not sure why. Alright, so yeah, that's MMPR Red. And then for the other two, I do not have Japanese keys for, because they did not release a G-Ranger key set, and you kind of had to get them through Gashapon, or Candy Toy, or special sets. Alright, here's MMPR Black, which I actually think looks really good. I think the head sculpt is very well done on there, as you can see on there. I actually think it's a really nice looking key. I mean, the rest of the MMPR suits are really basic looking, but I think they did a really good job on the head sculpt. Show it in key mode here, and then just to prove it for this only one, I'll show you that it does the same sounds, but just know from now on I'll just show one per set, because otherwise it would just be a waste of time. And then see when you press it again, so there's no, like, you know, Mighty Morphin Black, see, it'll just say Mighty Morphin. So yeah, all the same sound for each set. I'm not saying all the keys on here have the same sound, but every one to each season has the same exact sound. So there's no need to be going over all of these. That would honestly just be tedious. So yeah. And alright, now last in the set, we've got Mmpr Blue, which I also think looks really good. I think Black's got the most detail on his helmet, but I think Blue also looks pretty solid with the details on him. He's a pretty solid looking key. So, and then here we have his key mode. There you go. Alright, now we'll move on to Zeo. So here's the interesting thing. My last review was filmed for key set 1, before we knew much about how the keys were going to be distributed, and this is being filmed after Toy Fair, when we learned that all the sets will just simply be released in sets of 3. We're not going to get any blind packs, so we likely won't get a lot of the girls. So it seems to just be the 3 guys, with the exception of sets like Ninja Storm and later probably Dino Thunder, that have one girl on the team. However, for Zeo, we got red, blue, and yellow. I have no idea why they did that for that, and in fact, knowing about how they're going to do this, it kind of bugs me. I really wish we would have just got green, because in my head it bothers me that they just didn't stick to the same system, so I have no idea why. But anyway, that's how it's going to go down. So we have Red Zeo, pretty okay looking. You know, Zeo obviously has more details in there, but they never really captured that. I do have the Japanese version here for this, only of Red though. Those are the two side by side. See, they look pretty similar. Honestly, they're just like, they're, you know, shrunk down. So put his hands up, flip the key up, And we also did get a Zeo Red key with the Zeo Racer Zord. So Zeo, second key turn, Mmpr communicator sound. So pretty much the same. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and pick it up. So we got Yellow Ranger, which is obviously Female Ranger, instead of Green, which bothers me in the sense, like I said, that in my head it would have made more sense for them to stick with the same scheme. And as of right now, that appears to be the only one going on that odd scheme out of the teams of regular 5. But there's Zeo Yellow. Pretty okay looking, pretty bland. I do not have a Japanese counterpart key to show you for this one. There's its key mode. And yeah, so all that info was revealed. Last time I said, maybe there'll be blind packs. It turns out there's not going to be, which to be honest, I'm a little bit relieved about because I'm really tired of looking through pack codes. But yeah, a lot of people are upset about it. All right, now here's Zeo Blue. Pretty okay looking. Not bad, not bad. And there's its key mode. Yet again, the same sounds for all of these. So all 3 of these Zeo keys will make the same sound you saw with Red Zeo. Oops. Sorry about that. Just stay up, Zeo Blue. Damn it! He's causing an avalanche of everybody. If he doesn't stay up, I might just leave him until, like, the end. Alright, so now we can move on to Turbo. Here's Red Turbo, which I think they also did a very good job on their head sculpts. Here, the paint looks really nice. The rest of the suit's pretty bland. He practically looks just all red with these little pieces. But still, not bad looking. I do have his Japanese counterpart, but yet again, I only have red. But yeah, see, not bad. There's really not a terrible amount of differences between the two. So now we'll do its key mode and the noises for this. And then yet again, I'll keep saying it just in case, but the noises for this key is the same as the other 2 turbo keys. Oop, jump the gun. Turbo. Same communicator tone. And this is like the last season of keys that would make sense for, because they had the communicator beeps. I don't think they had them for space. I think they had like that weird blurr noise. That was like a brilliant rendition of it. Alright, here we have Green. As you can see here on mine, there's actually a blotched paint mistake on there. Usually I'd be more picky about this, but this was the only box that they had when I picked these up at Kmart. Yep, that's right, I got them at Kmart. So the details are pretty good on it, but this one has a blotched paint mistake. And I think there's at least 1 or 2 more that have it. I can't remember at the moment which ones they were. But yeah, just watch out for that. Whether you're picky or not, it depends. Like I said, I got this at Kmart. They actually pulled it from the back for me. And so I just picked up what they had. Blue Turbo. This is actually just an actual size. No, I'm sorry. That was a lame joke. But yeah, his is fine. For whatever reason, I've always been partial to the blue suit. I'm not sure why. But the details on the helmet are pretty well done. No blotches on there or anything like that. So yeah, there's his key mode. Now, in space, my personal favorite Power Rangers season, the keys themselves are actually pretty bland. You can see this one's actually got some weird paint splotch things going on, but given the fact that they don't have like little colors here, the key is pretty bland. But Japanese version, also pretty bland. Like, I get there's a size difference here and people complain about it, but in terms of paint, they're pretty much the exact same quality, except these had less paint mistakes. So I'm just saying, I think people are a little too harsh on these keys, to be perfectly honest. As I said, I really dig these keys. I like the small size, and I like the way that they flip. I just think it's something, they're fun little keys. In space. Now I'm trying to think, I believe, if I remember correctly, Yellow Zeo had a skirt and there's no line for it, which is also going to appear in Ninja Storm. I just happened to glance over at the key and think about that, so I believe that there's no skirt on that. In the key form, I mean. Alright, here we got Black in Space. As you can see, there's actually quite a bit of paint mistakes on there. And he's pretty bland looking. This one actually looks like the most bootleg of them all. I always kind of say that Ranger keys kind of look like bootleg toys, but Black looks pretty ghetto. That sounded so racist. I didn't mean it that way, but you know, his paint job makes him look like a really crappy key that you would get like at Big Lots or something. All right, Blue in Space. He's got a smidge of a little paint right there, but he actually he got it the easiest in terms of paint mistakes among the in Space set. Here's his key mode. There. All right, now it's time for Time Force. Lame joke. Start with Red. Here's, well, we gotta focus, there we go. Red Time Force, not bad looking, not really any paint mistakes that much. Did a pretty solid job on it. I do have, again, here's his Japanese counterpart. As you can see, obviously, really the only difference is size. Maybe some slight proportion issues. Or they're not issues, because obviously this is the size they're supposed to be. Here's its key mode. Time for the morpher noises. Time Force. Same turn. I wonder how many of you are out there watching, expecting one of these days the second turn to be other than the communicator key. Oh, I feel for you, man. Alright, so now we got Time Force Green. Good old Trip here. So he looks pretty good. I don't have Time Force keys. I actually have very few of these in multiple sets because I did not venture out into Candy Toy and Gashapon. I just didn't find it to be worth it. There's the Time Force key. I was going to say something, but I have to show the keys. I'll get on that point at the end. I was going to say about how we actually end up getting more keys in a lot of senses. Now, here's Time Force Blue. There's actually kind of a black paint spot there. I don't know if you can really see it, but yeah, he's got a little bit of a problem there. But other than that, pretty solid looking. There's his key mode. Alright, we got two more teams here. We're on the home stretch. Just out of curiosity, if there's anything different you want me to see me be doing in these key reviews, like more or less of anything, just let me know. Like, if you want me to bring back the comparison of key mode of the others, want me to show less of something, just let me know. Alright, I'm starting with Dustin for whatever reason. I just grabbed him. But we got Ninja Storm Yellow here. He looks pretty solid. There actually is a Hurricane key set, but I never got my hands on one. I'm still trying to find one. But there is a Hurricane key set that was regular retail. But he looks pretty solid. I'll show the comparison to Reds in a second, but I guess Dustin's going to be the one we use. He knew it. Power Rangers were real. Dustin was awesome. Ninja Storm. And the Mmpr theme. I don't know how cool all the sounds were, but it maybe would have been neat if all of the Ranger Key's second turn would have been their communicator sounds. Because they're just a bunch of beeps and boops later on. But still. Alright, we got Ninja Storm Red, Shane, and here I do have his key comparison. Pretty much the same. They didn't highlight the different colored arms on these ones either, so really no big deal there. In fact, this one actually has a little bit of a circular design in there, so it's a little bit better. In one sense, at least. So, there's that. There's its key mode. I get a feeling we'll be getting another Ninja Storm Red key with the, whatever they're going to call the Ninja Zord here. Alright, now we have Tori, the Blue Ranger here, and you can see her skirt line's not here, which honestly isn't that huge of a deal for me. It kind of looks like this would be, you know, when Noah transforms into it. But still, they don't have that. But other than that, it's okay. It's such a small detail, honestly. It's just literally a line. You could probably draw it on there if you wanted to. If you wanted to. That was embarrassing. That hasn't happened to me in a long time. Alright, so last but certainly not least, SPD. Here we've got SPD Red, looking pretty good. Obviously the major detail missing from it here is the little white strip. And so this was the only one that really had a huge difference, and actually this is the only series that I have a comparison for all three. So they did have a little white line there for that detail, and they have a little bit better details up here on the helmet. But it's not that huge of a detail, but that's probably the most major one you're getting here. We got Bridge, Spd Green. I'll use him for the sounds, because he's Bridge, he's all buttery and stuff. And he's actually got the white line on him. I don't even know why I didn't notice that. That's really strange. I can't believe I didn't notice that before. I was messing around with these for a while, but here's a comparison. Why does only he have it? I don't know if anybody else has like had something like that. That's really weird. Anyway, let's show him for the key. So that's really strange because I've seen other people buy them, but I haven't paid enough attention to see if maybe that's a thing with that. But anyway. Second sound. Yeah, that's really strange, because I was messing around with these guys for a while, and I can't believe I didn't even notice that. I think I was just putting so much focus into the fact that, I was going to be comparing the Reds for most of them, that I was just looking at the differences between those two. But Bridge has the white outline on his number, but the other two do not. As you can see, SPD Blue, Sky does not have it on there. And just to show a quick comparison, here it is next to the Japanese version. So they have the most noticeable difference except for Bridge. And then there's its key mode, and that will get us into the final stretch here. But yeah, that's about it for the second wave of keys. As I said, we did find out we were only getting sets of 3. There's not going to be any blind packs to fill it out. We might be able to, who knows, we might eventually see all of them released, like in exclusive con form. I don't know. But this is all we've got right now. Like I said before, the fact that Zeo Yellow comes with it really annoys me because it throws off the system, which is just kind of annoying. I wish they would have just stuck to a system that they would have. I don't know. It just bothers me in my head. I don't know where I was going with that. But overall, I do like the American Ranger keys still. I think they look pretty decent. I mean, with the exception of those couple SPD ones, the details are nearly identical to the Japanese version. They're just shrunk down. And I personally like the little miniature size, and I like that they flip up. So I think we get a few bonuses. I think people are a little too harsh on the quality of the Ranger keys themselves. And I understand people's frustration with not being able to complete their collections, but, you know, one thing is we are actually getting more keys at retail than Japan did in a lot of ways, because, you know, Japan had all the Red Ranger sets, and then they had a few team sets, but if you wanted to get everybody, you had to venture out into Gashapon and Candy Toys and exclusive sets, which weren't part of the main retail line. At least with this one, assuming we get a wave or 2 more that completes it, we are getting at least a key pack with 3 Rangers from each season for every season. So like with many of these, you saw I didn't have the Japanese versions. So, you know, you're getting all of these guys here, I think from like right here at retail, their secondary colors, which is really nice. So in a lot of ways, we actually got it better, because in most cases you would only get the red for some of these. These 2 had packs. So yeah, I think that's nice. I think we have a few pluses. But overall, like I said, I still do enjoy the Ranger keys. Keep an eye out. There are a few with quite a bit of paint mistakes on there, which can be a bit annoying, especially on the smaller scale where it's really noticeable if it's a large paint splotch. But watch for that. But I still think they're nice keys if you're wanting to collect them all. But it's a cheaper, easier way. The price has actually gone down. When I bought the first set, they were like $12.99 or something, and they actually fixed it to $7.99 or $8.99 depending on where you go. So yeah, it's fairly reasonable. I still think they're good keys, but just watch out for the paint mistakes. There's just a few minor problems with it. But yeah, and just so I'll probably still get questions about this, but right now you can find these at Target, the Wave 2 specifically, and Kmart, and I believe Toys R Us is getting them as well, and I think Walmart's just starting to get keys, but they have Wave 1. So basically you can find them at any place you would find toys, but just wait for Wave 2. Depends on when you're watching this, I suppose. But anyway, I've been rambling too long. I will let you guys go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the crazy podcast at writersrangersandrambles.com. Till next time, it's Dawson Ryder, signing out.